afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Spurs Up, the CCS Roundtable Show. I'm Jack Taylor.
And I'm Matt Bumbaca.
And we're here to bring you a new segment focused on Gamecock sports. And jumping right off the bat, for lack of better words, baseball is starting their season this weekend with their opening three-game series against VMI, and that's going to be a big series for the Gamecocks. Tell us why, Bumbaca.
Yeah, this series is definitely going to tell us a whole lot of stories and tell us the truth about the Gamecock baseball team this season, and especially because the new head coach, Mark Kingston, is coming in and trying to rejuvenate that club, bringing a new hitting style. I hope he's going to really help this team.
Yeah, he's had the whole offseason to talk. He's had a lot of speculation around him. But, you know, this is where you got to put those words to action and see how the team will perform. I think they won't be as good as they were, obviously, in 2010 or 2011. I think it's going to take them a while, a couple of years, to get back to where they were. They do have a good amount of returning players that will benefit. Mm-hmm. We talked about the new hitting style, and they have people like Carlos Cortez, who, you know, he leads the SEC in batting average last year, at least.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be able to thrive under.
Yeah, it's only going to go up from here. I don't see him slumping, and they have some solid hitters like Jacob Olsen and some returning veterans like Madison Stokes and Jonah Bride, and I really think that they are poised for a postseason run.
But see, even when you talk about that, because players like Stoke and Bride, they've had the same coach their whole career. Stokes has played for 4 years, and I think he is ready for a great senior year, but he still has to adapt to the new coaching style.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from with that, but at the same time, I think that it's going to help, like I said before, rejuvenate and bring more life to these guys. It's new, it's something new, it's different, and I think that could really help them. I'm actually going to compare this Gamecock baseball team to the New York Yankees and how they brought in Aaron Boone this offseason, literally just to freshen up the team, like just to give it a nice change, you know, like change of pace.
Understandable, but even so, I think with any sport, anytime you get a new coach, especially a head coach,
there's an adjustment period, and that's why this series coming up at Founders Park against VMI is so important, and it's going to really tell us a lot about this team. And
you're actually going to be out there covering for Capital City Sports this weekend, aren't you?
Yes, I will. I'll be out there on Sunday covering the final game of the three-game series. Yep.
Well, we'll have to see after that. Moving on now, we're going to talk about the basketball teams. Obviously, they haven't had as much success as they had last year, making it to the national championship, winning, and then with the men's side, getting to the Final Four. Which of the two teams, from what we've seen so far, do you think either of those teams are going to get back to where they got last year?
I believe that the women's team can definitely get back into the Final Four. I'm not sure about that national championship game. Right now, they are ranked number 8, and I assume that they will be a 2 seed in the tournament. But I think that Dawn Staley will have those girls, and they are defending national champs. I think that they'll definitely be fine come tournament time.
See, I got to disagree with you there. I think that with the amount of they've had a lot more bad losses this year than they had in last year.
You're right.
And with the streak they had coming from last year and the momentum they had coming from the offseason, I don't think they've reached up to the hype that was built around them. I didn't think they were going to be obviously number 1 in the league, but I thought at least around there. I mean, they're number 8 right now. Yeah. They had a good win coming off, I think, in their last game.
They played Georgia.
And they had a good win coming off there, but I think that UConn is still just as much of a powerhouse as it's always been.
Leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else.
And I think that they might not even make it out of Colonial Life Arena if that's where they're playing those first and second rounds.
I think that being home, having that home court advantage, I think that'll definitely help them advance. And you have players, arguably one of the best players in the country, like Asia Wilson, and I think that they definitely have a shot going back to the Final Four. For the men's team, though, on the other side, it's a totally different story.
I could see them not even making the SEC tournament, and everyone makes the SEC tournament. So I just think that that's, how bad they are and how much competition there now exists in the SEC.
The SEC is
teams like Auburn, teams like Alabama, who came out of nowhere.
As a conference, it's gotten better, but the Gamecocks have struggled in the conference.
And I think that they've had good wins like Kentucky, and they had good wins like beating Florida.
In Florida,
but they also had a lot of bad losses. Temple in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
They had lost to Mississippi State and Missouri a couple times at peace. And they
got crushed by A&M.
They couldn't get.
They're in a slump right now.
And they couldn't get those big wins. Their out-of-conference schedule was horrible.
Yeah.
And they had a chance to beat Texas Tech. They couldn't finish that out. They didn't score any points in the last 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then teams like Tennessee, they had the lead and just lost it within the last couple minutes.
Yeah. They're actually hosting Auburn at Colonial Life this Saturday, so that's going to be interesting to see. Maybe they put up a good fight, and it would be a crazy win if they did do it. That'd be a crazy upset.
there is talk that they might not even make the NIT tournament.
Yes. Now, if they do get in, I trust Frank Martin. Being as great as a coach that he is, I think that he could help them advance in the NIT tournament if they get in. But we're at the point right now where it doesn't even look like they'll get into that tournament.
There's no X factor on that team. There's no star player like they had in Sindarius and they had in PJ. Now there's just not really anyone. Hopefully, when Brian Bowen comes in and they have players like that, then maybe,
and Rakeem
Felder,
yep.
who has that experience in the tournament, maybe that can bring it back, but I just don't see it within the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. And you see the improvement of Chris Silva from year to year. He's actually been playing very well, but he really has no help. And he's not as a consistent offensive threat as you would like him to be. You know, but he's a great power forward, and Mike Coatsart will have another year under his belt, and Felipe Haas, I think next year is going to be a solid year for the Gamecocks.
Moving on, we talked about new coaching staffs in terms of baseball, and even now we can move on to football. Had a great year last year with a couple disappointing losses, but a good postseason with a victory in the Outback Bowl over Michigan. And now they have gotten rid of their offensive coordinator, Kurt Roper, and brought in Brian McClendon. Well, not brought in, promoted from within.
Yes.
Which I think was a great move because he has shown a lot of potential. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, I like McClendon a lot. I think it was important to get Roper out. There was just no consistency and no flow with that offense last season.
I think there was consistency. They ran it every first down. They ran it every time they got the ball. It was just a halfback read, and that's why I think that there was so much consistency in the fact that he didn't try anything new. He let games slip away.
Everybody knew what we were going to do.
The Texas A&M game, we had that game in the bag going in the second. They had that game in the bag second half, and Kurt Roper just let it slip out of his hands. He started calling conservatively, and I think that McClendon needs to go. He needs to go straight from the get-go. He needs to be firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that he definitely being under Roper the past 2 seasons is similar. He called a similar game in the Outback Bowl, but I think he's definitely gonna bring in his own style and definitely help that offense. I think the biggest key is the new hire of QB coach Dan Werner, who was the former offensive analyst at Alabama last year, and he's going to incorporate a lot of RPOs and really help Jake Bentley out.
I think his hire was overshadowed by the promotion of McClendon. I think he will be the key factor for this offense in getting it from what it used to be and making it more explosive and making it so that Bentley can learn and grow, because he's still a fairly inconsistent quarterback.
Yeah, but I think he had a sophomore slump, and that the junior year is definitely he's going to shine, again, especially with the help of the hiring of Dan Werner.
Speaking of the Gamecock football team, we have, as you know, it's a big year for Gamecocks in the NFL. We've got a good draft class going in. We've got Hayden Hurst, Sky Moore, Taylor Stallworth, and Jamarcus King.
All 4 players were invited to the NFL Combine, and they are some solid NFL prospects. Tell us, where do you think their best fits are, Jack?
When it comes to Hayden Hurst, he's obviously an older player, but I think that there's some situations that have arose within the year that are going to allow him to get a good pick. I think he could land maybe very late in the first round to maybe
a team like
I think to maybe like a team in the Jacksonville Jaguars where they need an offensive weapon like that. Mm-hmm. Even maybe in terms of Seattle Seahawks, Jimmy Graham has been fairly disappointing for the Seahawks, and
that would be interesting. I don't know if he really fits in the Seahawks system as well as maybe the New England Patriots. I think that system has always traditionally been a 2 tight end system, and if you pair him up with Rob Gronkowski, I think that could be a very lethal combination.
Well, see, that's a tricky scenario because we don't really know what their tight ends are going to be this year because they brought back Martellus Bennett, but he was on IR the whole season.
You're right, he was hurt.
Gronkowski was injured for most of the season. He's not even sure if he's going to be back.
Yeah.
He might step away from football.
I believe he's coming back.
I believe he's going to step away from the Patriots, but that's something we can talk about later. And so I think that, and when there's teams, there's all the teams like the Texans or the Raiders he could be put on. I think in my mind, and at the risk of sounding a little bit biased, I think the Carolina Panthers is his best fit. Yeah. If he were to be drafted by the Panthers, it wouldn't be first round. So if he lasts that long, it would be a good fit. But with the injury scare of Greg Olsen this year, he missed the first time he's missed that many games in a season. He's in his 13th, I believe, maybe 14th year in the NFL.
Yes.
The Panthers have a very tight end centered offense because they lack weapons everywhere else. Mm-hmm. So I think if Hurst were to come in, learn under Greg Olsen, because in my mind he's basically a ginger Greg Olsen. He's got the hands, he's got the speed, And he's got the age just as well, and he even blocks better than Greg Olsen, which is saying something.
It would be great for him to go in and learn under Greg Olsen, a veteran tight end like that.
I just don't know if he's going to actually last that long.
Okay. Moving on, though, we got Sky Moore, who I think is going to be he is a great NFL prospect. I think that he's going to do some great things at the next level. I think that some of his best landing spots are the Detroit Lions or maybe a team in need of a linebacker like the New York Giants.
I could easily see that. The Lions have made it known that that's a position they're looking to lock up, either that or a defensive tackle in this draft. And with the Giants, they just need some sort of spark on defense. They're known for having great linebackers or great defensive players.
Yeah. And they never draft these linebackers high, but I think that Sky Moore would be great third-round pick for them, you know? And Sky Moore, Will Muschamp always talks about his intelligence and how his football IQ sets him apart from other players, and I think that that's something that the New York Giants definitely need and are looking for.
I could see him going to a team like the Raiders, even a team, honestly, like the Bears. They have a history of great linebackers.
Very true.
They've had people, you know, like Mike Singletary. They've had people like when he played Ron Rivera, and they've had, obviously, Brian Urlacher.
One of the greats.
I think their defense is kind of lacking. I think, obviously, they will stick for a wide receiver. I see them picking Calvin Ridley in the first round, so I don't think Sky would. I don't think Sky is a first-round player. I believe he'll be more of a second round, maybe even early third round.
Yeah.
And again, at the risk of sounding biased, with Thomas Davis Sr. announcing his retirement and being able to play with players like Luke Kuechly and Shaq Thompson, I think he would thrive in that defense.
Definitely, he would definitely learn and soak it up like a sponge underneath those guys.
And then not last but not least, but Taylor Stallworth is another great player. Unfortunately, in my mind, I think if anything, he would be very late third round, maybe even Mr. Irrelevant, just because defensive linemen.
There's 7 rounds in the NFL draft.
I meant
late 7th round, maybe.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Late 7th round or a late 6th or 7th round, and then maybe even Mr. Irrelevant, only because defensive linemen aren't entirely sought after.
They're not valued nearly as much as other positions.
The only team I've really seen anyone talking about is the Lions looking for defensive linemen. But there are people like Deron Payne from Alabama who are great defensive weapon or two-way weapons if you want to throw him a touchdown. I just don't believe that Taylor Stallworth. He's a bit. I think he has the talent and the speed to be successful. I just don't see. I think he'll be on a team. I just don't know if it'll be in the draft.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that I think that he'll definitely help an NFL team. I'm not sure if he'll get drafted, but he's a great football player, and I expect great things from him at the next level. And
then last but not least, Jamarcus King. There's not a whole lot to say about Jamarcus King. He had a great season last year in terms of the 2016-2017 season, but then in 2017-2018, kind of faltered a little bit.
I think the potential is there for Jamarcus King.
Definitely. You can see it in the way he played in games like Tennessee last year, or 2 years ago, games like that where he had a ton of red zone turnovers that really sealed the games for the game. Like
that interception in the Outback Bowl.
Exactly.
That was huge. Yes.
That was unfortunately that was the biggest play from him. The entire season. So with the class of cornerbacks that we have coming into the draft in the entire NFL, I think he would be a very late pick.
He'll be a late round pick, but I think just like all these other guys, he'll definitely help an NFL team.
That's been it for us for this next installment of Spurs Up. Tune in next week as we will have Justin King on to talk about his career with the Gamecocks and the impact that the school has had on his life. And if we hope you enjoyed this Gamecock segment and this NFL and NBA and just professional sports segment. And if you have anything that you want us to talk about, tweet at us at Spurs Up.
Yep.
On Twitter, and we will take those into consideration. But until next time, I'm Jack Taylor.
And I'm Matt Bumbaca.
Spurs Up.